Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, y'all, my name's John. I serve as pastor here at the Springs, and I just want to start by saying welcome. One of the things, if you grew up in church, you consider yourself a follower of Christ, or you're just generally church folk kind of people, we have a saying that we use on Easter, and it goes a little bit like this. It's a little bit of I say it, crowd responds. It's my best attempt to be like a Christian DJ, like, hey, ho, except we go, he is risen. Just for me, I only get to do this once a year. One more time, ready? He is risen. I love it. If you're already sitting there wondering, did the pastor just make the service about him on Easter? Yes. We are so glad you're here. Here's the thing that I know that's true. Like if you're here and you're hanging out, everyone who gathers here, you come from very different backgrounds, ethnicities, educations, values, families of origin, upbringings. You come from very different places in a relationship with Christ, let alone set that aside, just a view of God. Some of you come here and this is your favorite day and weekend of the year because you know that because he's risen, it changes everything. You have a restored relationship with a Father in heaven who loves you, that you know what intimacy with the creator of the universe can feel like. And then there's perhaps many of you in person, online, some, and this was me for a long time. You're here because you're trying to be respectful to your family members that invited you. You're not here even necessarily with positive feelings toward God. You might have a negative view. You might have feel God had hurt you. You very well statistically have been hurt by people who claim to represent him. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, we're really glad you came. Here's the reason I want to show you. I want to remind me, if you're a follower of Jesus or if you're not, the resurrection is a big deal. The resurrection, Christians believe it's this moment where God, he died on Friday for the forgiveness and atonement of sins. Sunday, he rose, showing he defeated death, he conquered sin, that by faith and faith alone, I can know him. I can be healed and grow in healing. The resurrection, it's all about God. It's all about his glory, but here's the thing. He rose, that's true. But he rose for you. So whether or not you want him this morning, whether or not you believe in him this morning, we're going to look at it, perhaps a familiar passage to some of us, where we're going to see how he rose, and he rose because of God before you. If you have a Bible, you can turn to me. We're going to be in Luke chapter 24. Luke 24. We're going to read a big chunk of scripture. We're going to go verse 1 all the way down through 36, where we are going to see the resurrection day of Christ. It's literally going to go from dawn all the way into the next Monday morning, likely the early hours of the morning. What we're going to see here is there's really three scenes. There's the scene of those who first went to appear at the tomb, where Christians, we say the stone was rolled away. The body was gone. Christ was risen. That'll be the first scene. We won't spend much time talking about it. Then we're going to talk about a familiar story, the walk to Emmaus, the journey of two people. Two people, I believe, was a married couple, a man and a woman. I'll show you why I think that, but it doesn't change the text in any way if it's not. But two people and their journey away from God and God's journey toward them. And then the final scene, and we won't spend much time, but the moment of Christ appearing to his disciples. It's an amazing story. If you have a Bible, you can read with me, or you can see it up on the screen or on your phone, whatever works well. I'm going to start in 1, but really the part we're going to focus on picks up in verse 13, on the walk to Emmaus. But on the first day of the week, verse 1, that's Sunday, at early dawn, so it's about 6 a.m., they went to the tomb. These were these amazing saints, these women, these faithful women. First Christian missionaries are these women. They went to the tomb, taking the spices they had prepared, and they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went in, they didn't find the body of the Lord Jesus. They were perplexed about this. Behold, two men stood by them in dazzling apparel. All of a sudden, angels show up. And as they were frightened and bowed their faces to the ground, the men said, "Why do you seek the living among the dead?" I love this. He's not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee, the Son of Man, he must be delivered in the hands of sinful men, be crucified, but on the third day rise. He would come back. They remembered his words. Returning from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and the rest. There's a crowd of people in a room. They run back to it. They find the disciples, these amazingly faithful women, and they say, no, you have to know what I know. You have to see what I've seen. It was Mary Magdalene. I can't wait to meet her one day. And Joanna, and Mary, the mother of James, and the other women who told these things to the apostles. But these words to them seemed an idle tale. There's a lot of sadness in that line. They did not believe them. But Peter rose, and we know from other gospel accounts, John will go with him, but Peter rose and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves, and he went home, marveling at what had happened. So Christ has risen, the stone is rolled away, the women go to check to help anoint him with spices and prepare him for his burial. He was dead. His body was decaying. They were trying to keep the scent off their Savior. But as they come, the stone is rolled. They look inside. There's no body. There's no dead man. They say, what's happened to him? Two angels appear in dazzling light, and they say, you're looking for a dead man. This man is alive. It sends them back into the room. You got to see, they would have burst through the door. They would have found the apostles. They would have likely run their way there. First missionaries, being these women, arrive in, kick open the door. No. You got to hear me. You got to hear me. We went, the stone rolled. That was a heavy stone. The stone rolled. He wasn't in there. We saw angels. Peter goes. Peter checks. He sees the cloths. Peter gives the report. Scene change. Verse 13. This is later in the day. That would have been the morning time. That very day, and this is where we're going to focus. Two of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about all the things that had happened. And while they were talking and discussing together, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. Before I keep reading, you have to understand what that meant. There were others that had heard this news. After hearing this news, they leave Jerusalem. They start walking away. And as they're walking away, Christ walks towards them. As they're leaving him, he goes finding them. Jesus himself drew near and went with them, verse 16, but their eyes were kept from recognizing. He said to them, what is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk? They stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, named Cleopas, answered him, are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? Like Christ comes and he says, hey, what are y'all talking about? He knows what they're talking about. He's God. And then they look at him with like incredulous view. Have you not heard the scandalous news? Are you the only person in Jerusalem? Because it's been 3 days. Everyone would have known. You don't know that at least the rabbi, maybe the prophet, we hoped the Messiah, they condemned him, they killed him, he's dead. You don't know this? He said to them, being Jesus, what things do you talk of? They said to him, we talk concerning Jesus of Nazareth, a man who was a prophet. They call him a prophet. Mighty in deed and word before God and people, and how our chief priests and rulers delivered him to be condemned to death. They crucified him. Sadness is here too. but we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it's now the third day since these things happened. Moreover, some women of our company amazed us. That context matters. They were so close to the 11 disciples. They'd been in the room for when the women came and recounted the story. They amazed us. They were at the tomb early in the morning. When they didn't find a body, they came back saying they had even seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb, Peter, John, and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see. Christ says, "Oh, foolish ones, slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken." It's fascinating, slow of heart. These two folks walking on the road to the Emmaus, they did not have, as kind of Christian folk like to say, a head problem. They had a heart problem. Jesus goes into teacher mode. Was it not necessary that Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory? And this is crazy. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. 7 miles. If you know New Braunfels well, I know some of you are perhaps just out of town. If you know it, Texas Ski Ranch is 7 miles from here. According to Google Maps, it'll take you 4 hours if you want to walk there, and we have paved roads and sidewalks. We have a highway that's going to be a direct route. Let's say it would have taken them 4 hours. Better yet, I bet those two were in way better shape than me. Let's say it took them 3.5, right? It's on that journey. Christ is teaching them. We'll talk about the significance of why it matters. They drew near to the village to which they were going. They're getting close to Emmaus. Jesus acted as if he were going further, but they urged him strongly. They're begging him, "Stay with us, for it's towards the evening, and the day is now far spent. You started the day at dawn. He's risen." They've come, they've told the news, they've told the apostles. There is this 4-hour, 7-mile walk. Christ has been with them. The day is closing, evening is coming, it's close to dusk, it's dinner time. It's towards the evening, and the day is now far spent, so he went in to stay with them. Christ is going to hang out with them. When he was at the table with them, he does what he does. He took the bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to them. And their eyes were opened. They recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Did our hearts not burn within us while he talked with us on the road? While he opened to us the scriptures?" And they rose that same hour and returned to Jerusalem. They found the 11 and those who were with them and gathered them together, saying, "The Lord has risen indeed. He has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road, and how he was known to them in the breaking of the bread. In our final verse. And as these two, who had left, and because of the resurrection are now made missionaries, they're in this room. As they were talking about these things, Jesus himself stood among them, said to them, "Peace be to you." It's a long narrative, but it's a beautiful story. The reason I feel that this story, it's so beautiful, why it is perfect in light of the resurrection, because it shows what the resurrection means. Whether you want him or not, whether you believe in him or not, whether you trust him or not, whether you follow him or not, he rose for you. See, here's the theme. There's 3 themes to this section. The first theme, and it's a theme I can identify with, and I think you can too. The first theme is these two, they left him. The second theme, he came for them. And the third, they rose for him. You see, experiencing the risen Christ, people rise and they run. Let me show you those 3 themes before I get you probably late to your Easter brunch. First part is they left him. Sometimes when we talk about the road to Emmaus, it evokes like a positive connotation. Here's what's true about these folks, these 2 people. I think, by the way, it's a married couple, Cleopas and his wife, because they're going to a house, right? And they're dying together. It's their home. the language was never two males, the Greek, it's not gender specific. That shared, it doesn't really matter. I just think it's a cool insight. They left him. These two folks knew Jesus really well. How do we know that? They had been in the room for when the women came and returned. They'd been in the room long enough for when the women had returned, but then Peter went to check, and then Peter returned to give an update. The women are telling the truth. It's from that moment. It started at dawn. What time is it then? Have they had lunch? Is it noon? It's afternoon. From that moment, those two folks in that room, they then say, it's not worth it. I'm leaving. They'd been that close to the disciples, the apostles. Scholars think, if you go back in the Gospel of Luke, in chapter 10, there's a moment where Jesus, he appoints and he sends 72 missionaries. He thinks Cleopas and this person were part of that 72. They weren't the closest circle of the disciples, but they were that next branch out. They'd seen him die. They'd waited in Jerusalem. They'd heard the news. They were close to him. And here's the second thing that matters. They abandoned him. They chose this. They left. They had been warned. You see, they had come, and like so many folks, they had expectations of God, but God hadn't met their expectations. And so they said, okay, you're not good enough for me. I'm going my own way. They wanted him to come and redeem Israel, which for them was like, man, free me of the oppressor. Take the pain. Take the punishment. You got to bring in a new kingdom. And then two, like if I'm with you, I know Jesus, I'm not part of maybe the 12. Well, there was less ones, so maybe there's an opening right now. I'm not really sure. But I know I'm not in that circle. But the 72, okay, we're kind of close, and you're bringing a new kingdom. Maybe I can have a spot in the new kingdom. They're even warned by the women. They don't hear them. They're warned by Peter, and they walk home. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like God or your view of God didn't meet your expectations? Or maybe he felt like to you a disappointment. If he only would have brought the healing, if he would have only spared this marriage, if he only would have saved my child, if he only didn't ask so much from me. Many of us on our journey of faith, even if you're here and you love Christ, you've been changed, we have a tendency to leave him. We have a tendency to go the other direction. And some of you here, and you don't believe in him. Respect to you. Even as you walk away from him, even as you doubt, even as you deny, even as you disbelieve, what does he do? He comes after you. It's amazing. They're walking on this journey, and then it says Christ himself. He comes and he shows. He walks up to them and they're talking. He asks them, what are you guys talking about? He knows what they're talking about, what he wants to do. And I believe it's part of the reason that he sovereignly says, y'all can't recognize me. Because they would have recognized him. They would have known him, and he wants to get to the heart of the root disbelief. And he comes up and he engages them, and the first thing he does is he just walks with them. 3.5 miles. 7 miles, 3.5 hours. Here's the crazy thing. Here's what that's true. Some of y'all, you guys think, in your doubt and your disbelief, maybe you grew up around church, you've left the church, you think God's like ticked at you. He's angry, he's mad at you. You've done all this stuff and you're far off, and God kind of sits back like you're in the doghouse and like, hey, you pay your penance and you come back to me. I won't go towards you. This shows, because of the resurrection, no. You can leave me and I will pursue you. The second thing that Christ does is they left him and he came for them. The second thing you see him do is he teaches them. He says, I know you had missed expectations. I know you wanted your will to be done. Trust me, my will's better. Trust me. And he goes and he literally, on this journey, this would have been the coolest 3-hour, 2-hour seminary class on the planet. And he says, man, I'm going to take you to Moses. I'm going to take you to the prophets. I'm going to take you to the whole Old Testament, and I'm going to show you how it all pointed to this. Where did he start? Like if you're familiar with your Bible, you'll know some of these. If not, he's just telling a story. Like I imagine he'd start in eternity past. He made humanity knowing humanity wouldn't want him, and he would seek to rescue them from themselves. I wonder if he talked about in the garden. No. You remember the promise? The serpent would strike the heel. He'd crush the serpent's head. Do you remember Abraham laying Isaac down and God stayed his hand because Abraham didn't have to sacrifice his son? But God would sacrifice his boy instead. Do you think they've just come out of Passover? Do you think he looked at them and he said, no. He had to die. He had to rise. This is the Passover lamb. Do you think he went sacrificial system? Who knows? I imagine he also went, though. The Messiah is a suffering servant, broken for the sins of many. He would have talked about the pairing, the divine pairing of the crucifixion and the resurrection. Here's why that's nuts. He owed them nothing. Some of you have this view of God. You think, no. God should explain and it should be evidenced. No. He had already died for the sins of Cleopas and whoever was with him. He had risen. He had sent 2 different groups of people to tell them to at least wait. And they left. He owed them nothing. He didn't owe them the walk. He didn't owe them, no. Come, let me reason with you. I'll show you. You can trust God. I'll show you how his promises are true. I'll show you how it's always pointed to this. God is after you and God loves you. I'll show you. They left him. He came for them. He walked. He taught. He ate. We all know there's something amazing that happens over meals with people. Christ comes, and the language is meant to speak to a hint of the last summer. It's not really a hint, it's an explicit reference. Where Christ comes, and he gives thanks, and he breaks the bread. At that point, Jesus he's in a traveling cloak. Here's why that matters. That traveling cloak would likely cover all the way to the arms. In this moment, he would have lifted the bread forward and publicly given thanks. Perhaps someone handed it to him. I don't know. I wonder if it's in his outstretched arms where they finally see that's a pierced hand. That's where the cross drove. I wonder if that is when the Holy Spirit starts to give them a sense of, wait. I knew something different was about you. My heart has been burning since you walked. My heart has been leaning in, and now I see the wound. And they realize you broke your body. You shed your blood for me. It's this divine moment of understanding. We left, and you came. The beauty of even the genre that's happening right here in Luke 24 is you get this teaching through the narrative, but also through the geography. You see, you ran 7 miles from. Christ didn't sit back and say, good for you, have at it. He chased him down. And in that, he said, no, I've come for you. I'm real. I died, I rose. You can trust me. And he showed, I've bought you. Don't run from me. You can trust me. I came to make you family. I'll call you brother. I'll call you sister. Boom. He's gone. Wild moment. Like, I just imagine being in the room. Wild moment, because it would have been enough for them to be like, oh my goodness, it's him. Maybe they had a little bit of time to talk or ask questions, but the text sure seems to lean towards. And then he vanished. What would you have talked about right in that moment? Here's what I think I would have felt. I left him, he came for me, and he showed me his mercy. I think the first emotional step I would have felt would be shame. Shame. Why didn't I stay? Why didn't I listen to those women? Why didn't I at least wait and hear? I knew something was different about him. Why couldn't I recognize him? Why do I always leave him? And then I think, by the power of the Spirit of God, this is why he broke his body. There's no shame. I am new. I am free. I am forgiven. You see, in that moment, they engaged with the risen Christ. The resurrection took two people that were quitters, two people that were leavers, two people who felt entitled to their sense of God. You let me down, I'm out. And made them saints, forgiven, new, holy. I think that's why. Because right about this time, they've eaten dinner. It's late. It's probably like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. 7 miles back to Jerusalem. It's a 4-hour walk. Maybe they're healthy, 3.5, who knows? They won't get there till 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, maybe if they hustle midnight. Do you think they sat there and they're like, hey, let's get a good night's sleep. First thing, dawn, we'll take off. No way. Because in that moment, here's what they'd realize. He rose for me. He's back. Here's what that means. Here's what that means. The fact that he rose is this proclamation. It's a truth. All God's promises are true. I think they would have sat there and been like, wait. How did he do it? How did he come back? Where has he been? What does this mean? I think the most faithful thing they could have said in the moment was, I have no idea. I don't know how he did it. I don't know what all it means, but I know he's risen and we have to go tell them. Because for him to rise means we're forgiven, we're free. You may not redeem me from Rome, but you're going to redeem me from something far more oppressive, sin. And I'm a part of your kingdom. I don't just spectate and look from a distance. You move towards me. You want intimacy. You want relationship. You want actual brotherhood. No one had ever loved Cleopas and whoever was with him like that. No one. Christ owed them, me, you, nothing. Nothing. And the resurrection proves for them, me, you, he wants to give you everything. That moment, they get up from the table, they pack a bag, or maybe they just run, and there is no bright lights to light the way. It is by starlight. They make their way back to Jerusalem. They get back to where the disciples would have been staying. They're all likely gathered together because they were likely asleep. This would have been a moment where they come in, they're knocking on doors, they're waking people up, and people are saying, no, whatever news you have, it can wait till morning. I'm sad. Whatever news you have, it can wait till morning. They're like, no, you have to wake up. You have to get up. You have to hear this. Do you remember the urgency? He's risen. He came and he talked to us. Wait, why did he talk to you? You guys left us. Why'd he come and appear to you? Because that's who he is. He finds the wayward, the broken, the lost. And he says, mine. They're telling this story. They're vindicating the women. They're vindicating Peter. And they're just telling him, I don't know everything, but I know he is risen. That's what the reality of the resurrection does. It takes quitters makes them missionaries. It takes people who even have come to know the truth of Jesus Christ, but perhaps, just perhaps, want to sit in shame and say, I'm forgiven. That's not my home. I have a new family. I am made new. I am beloved. I didn't earn it. I don't deserve it, but I believe in it. And because I believe in it, he's mine. And no one can take it from me. I'll see him again. And then again, boom, Christ appears in the room. Cleopas and the partner would have been there with him to look on. And then I imagine in that moment, is Christ, he's going to come, he's going to show his wounds, he's going to talk with them, he's going to engage with them, and then he's going to eat a meal. I imagine they just sat there and they just looked as soon as he appeared, and they would have been scared at first because that's frightening when that happens, right? But then looked at him and said, it's true. It's all true. It wasn't a lie. It wasn't made up. No one took his body. There is no tall tale or legend. He was literally dead. He is literally back. And he came for the undeserving. He came for the disbelieving. He loves the doubting. People like me. I deserved nothing. And he came for me. And he said, John, I have a new name for you. I have a new life. I have a righteousness. I have a beauty. I have a strength. Hey, John, you won't have it all together. Hey, John, you'll hurt people. Hey, John, people will hurt you. But hey, John, I'll never leave you, man. I'll never stop helping. I'll never stop loving. I'll never stop caring. You're mine. When you even move away, I'll come to you and I'll bring you back. And one day, John, you're going to see me. You'll get to hug me. You'll get to hold me. Where promises you held by faith now. I believe he's risen. I believe it's true. I believe the resurrection happened. Then you'll just see it by sight. Here's my question. Where are you in this story? Maybe God has hurt you in your view of God. He has let you down. You've left. You're here out of courtesy, respect to that. Many people don't even do that. Have you walked away? Or perhaps you're a follower of Jesus, but you don't follow Jesus. You believe he rose, but you don't trust him with your life, so you go your own way. Is that where you are? Here's what you need to know, whether it be in your disbelief or your desire to do your own thing. He rose for you. He came for you. Or maybe you're in like the journey of wrestling with it. You're not quite sure. You're not opposed to it, but maybe you're not all in. His heart is he rose for you. He'll walk with you. It's a journey. He'll show you truth in his word. You can trust his promises. He wants such intimacy with you to where you see he broke his body. He shed his blood. And if you believe, just believe, no one can take that from you. Or maybe you know this news. You were the one that walked away and Christ met. He showed himself to you. You have to go and tell the world. It's amazing news that people who are far off can now be told you are his beloved. It's amazing news when people who live in shame can now be known as I'm sinless. It's amazing news that the unholy can be made holy, the forgotten can always be seen, that they're cherished by God, and He's ushering in a new kingdom through His people. He rose for you. By the power of the Holy Spirit, you have to see. I pray hearts are burning. He really does love you. You could trust Him. Let me pray. Glory to you, Jesus, for doing what only you can do. Coming for people like me. Lord, I'm asking that you would come, and even the folks gathered here, wherever they at, if they've run far, would they just walk with you, wrestle with your word, find people, Lord, for people who've walked away and perhaps feel shame. The forgiven never live in shame. That's a tool of the enemy. We have sonship. We are made daughters. Holy Spirit, would you come and make people who have been changed into folks who go and tell about the beauty of the resurrection? We deserved nothing. The resurrection, because of your glory, shows you have come to give us everything. We love you.